Everyone knows it, filmmaking gear is expensive. A complete professional kit with everything from the camera to lights to gripping equipment can cost anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000.
But it doesn't mean you can't create good films and videos with cheap gear. In our last video, we looked at everything you really need to make your first film. And today we're taking that advice and making a short film with just $1,000 of gear.
Of course, you will get a better image by using an expensive camera. You will have more flexibility by using good, powerful lights. And your film will look more cinematic with anamorphic lenses. But the story and the soul of your film will stay the exact same.
Knowing how to use cheap equipment well and to tell a good story means that once you will have access to the expensive stuff, you'll be one step ahead. So before making this short film, let's take a look at the equipment we'll be using.
Starting with the camera, we used my old Canon SL2, which I sold to a friend and he was kind enough to let us borrow it. This camera is a very low budget option and it's more of a photo camera, so it's pretty limited in terms of video specs. It does have all the manual controls you might need, but it's limited to 1080p 60 frames per second and it doesn't have a whole lot of dynamic range. It does have an input for a shotgun microphone, but it doesn't have an output to plug in headphones. But it does have Canon's dual pixel autofocus, which is really good, especially in their old DSLR cameras. Surprisingly, I found that the focus sticks better with this Canon SL2 than with my Canon R6 Mark II. So it's really a very low budget option for video, but I know this camera very well and we had easy access to it, so that's why we chose it.
What is nice about this camera is that it comes with a really good kit lens. It has image stabilization and a really good zoom range, but the only thing it lacks is a shallow depth of field. That's why for the depth of field we use two prime lenses, a 24 and a 50mm. They open up to f2.8 and 1.8, which gives you plenty of bokeh. The only downside is that they don't have image stabilization, and that's why for some situation we use this kit lens, which has stabilization. We kept an ND filter on hand, but because we were filming inside, we didn't use it that much. But if you were to film outside, this thing will live on your camera.
This is the type of camera you can typically find in a kit like this, with multiple lenses, batteries, an ND filter, an SD card in the camera, and a nice bag. And this normally costs like $400 to $500. Moving on to the audio, the gear we used was really cheap and simple. We just used this Comica CVM V30 Pro, which you can find on Amazon for like 60 bucks, and we put it on top of the camera for the entire film. And of course, we adjusted the audio settings in the camera manually so that the audio wouldn't peak. We shot our entire film inside, but if you were gonna shoot outside, you would need to put a dead cat like this one on top of the microphone.
The only reason we put the microphone on top of the camera is because we didn't have any dialogue. But if you were to have any dialogue in your short films, you would have to get your microphone closer to your actor. And the best way to do that is with a boom pole. When you use a boom pole, you have to transmit the audio to your camera somehow. And the only way to do that with no budget is with a really long cable. Moving on to support, we use two simple things, and the first one is a fluid-head tripod. This one is from Small Rig and we've been using it for the past 3 years now, and it never failed us. It has a good payload, it can go high enough for most situations, and the fluid head is really smooth, especially for the price. We'll leave a link in the description for it in case you're interested.
The second thing we used is a shoulder rig, and this one I built myself. It cost about $50 to make. It's made from 3D printed parts, aluminum tubes, and a cheap quick release plate. And surprisingly, it's more comfortable and versatile than most of the cheap shoulder rigs you can find on Amazon. We know that not everyone has the skills or the tools to make something like this themselves, so we'll leave some of our favorite cheap options in the description below. The tripod and the shoulder rig are the two cheapest and most useful support rigs you can use for filmmaking, so that's why we chose them.
This is everything we use for lighting our film. Starting with a kit of 2 RGB panels that came with a case and 2 stands. These are super versatile because they are powerful enough to act as a key light indoors, and they emit a nice soft light. That's without talking about the colors and effects that you can get with them. Also, you can power them with NPF batteries or plugged into a wall.
And then we have RGB tubes, which you can find for super cheap on Amazon. These aren't as powerful as the panels, but you can use them as a soft fill light on your actor, and you can hide them pretty much anywhere. They also come with a bunch bunch of effects so they can be an out-of-shot TV or the lights from a cop car. And finally, to shape and diffuse our light, we used a 5-in-1 pop-up reflector. These cost like 20 bucks and they give you a bounce, a diffusion, a negative fill, as well as a gold and silver bounce for effects.
And with all of that, you have a pretty complete lighting setup. Finally, it's always good to have tools and grip equipment to adapt to any situation. Here we have different size clamps, multi-tools, a box cutter, tape, and rope.
So all this gear is under $1,000 Canadian, which means it's like $700 US. That's not a lot of money, and with just that, you can have a complete starter kit to make your first project. Speaking of that, let's see exactly how we made our film, and we'll watch the result at the end of the video.
After finding inspiration and writing a script, we found our actor Paul and our shoot location, a modern apartment. This is to show you can make good films with just one actor in a location that you already have access to.
For this next sequence, we're gonna be preparing the scene. After we prepare the scene, we're gonna shoot the scene. And after shooting this scene, we'll be shooting another one and another one.
After arriving on set with the gear, we placed it in a room that won't be seen in the film, and we started blocking out our scenes. This is where you decide the specific actions your actor will do, choose what he will interact with, and find the best camera angles. Next, we prep the set by cleaning up and hiding everything we didn't want to see in our shots. For example, the light over the dining table was too low, so we attached it as high as we could with a piece of rope.
Next, it was time to shoot. We set up our first shot while Paul rehearsed the scene. We shot this whole scene on the tripod to give a calm and stable feeling to the scene. We used mostly natural light from the window, but for the shot where our character opens the door, we added a panel light outside the room to cast a soft shadow on the wall.
The next two scenes were more of the same, shooting on the tripod, but we used our lights a bit more. We clipped our pop-up diffusion over a panel light to soften it a bit. The light tubes were used to brighten our actor so that he pops from the background a bit more. After these scenes, our actor starts running around the apartment. So we put the tripod aside and started using our DIY shoulder rig. Because our camera setup is very light, you can see a lot of jitter in the image. To avoid most of it, we decided to use a stabilized lens. I also have some experience using a shoulder rig, which helps a lot.
At that point, the lighting had to be more general, so we angled our light panels toward the ceiling to fill the room with a soft ambience. And we kept using our tube near the actor when we could. For some shots, I had to hold the tube and move with the camera to keep the lighting on Paul consistent and out of the shot.
At the end of the film, the character gets fed up and throws a coffee machine at his patio door to break it and finally get out of the apartment. Obviously, we had to fake that, so we kept the door open and shut at an angle where it was hard to tell if it was closed or not. Then, so the coffee machine doesn't go flying and hit something, we attached a tarp on the balcony with rope so it could catch the coffee machine.
For this shot, we wanted to film in slow-mo, so we changed the frame rate in the camera to 60 FPS, which is the slowest the Canon SL2 can shoot. And we slowed down the footage, doubled that in Premiere Pro, and used optical flow to create new frames between the ones we originally shot. With this intense scene done, we had a couple simple tripod shots left to do, and we were done.
This short film took 5 hours to shoot and 3 hours to edit. So we can say it was all in a day's work. Let's see the result.